Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we're going to go through my July TBR. So first, I want to talk really quickly about my June TBR. So I had 15 books on my June TBR and currently it's the last day of June and I think I'll probably end up finishing 13 books total, but not all of those were on my original TBR. So I want to talk about a couple of books that I didn't read, a couple of books that I'm carrying into July, and then we'll talk about the new books. There were 5 books that I did not get to in June. Only 2 of those am I gonna hold on. So I'm not like DNFing these books by any means, I haven't even started them, but I'm just not gonna get to them in July, and so they're just gonna hold for a little bit. One of those is Stone Blind. I did start this, and by started I mean I listened to like 15 minutes of the audiobook. And I had both the audiobook and the physical book, but I just wasn't in the mood for mythology, and I really feel like I need to be to enjoy a book like that. It was a Medusa retelling, and I know that I'm going to like the book, or at least I believe that I'm going to like the book, but in listening to the first 15 minutes, I was having a really hard time focusing, and so I could just tell that it wasn't the right time. So I will get to it eventually, I just didn't get a chance to read it in June. The second book that I didn't read in June that I most likely won't be picking up in July is Frankenstein. So this was a book that I had a buddy read with Jeannie Chastain, and we've just had some trouble getting our buddy read set up, and so I'm just pausing for a little bit. I will get to this book eventually. I'm really excited to read Frankenstein. We just have to organize some things first. The 3 books in June that I do plan on carrying over into July, and I won't talk about them here because they are mentioned in my June TBR, but I just want to let you guys know that they are on my radar this month, which that is Engines of Empire, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and The Salt Grows Heavy. So those 3 books were on my June TBR video, but I didn't get to them that month, but I do plan on reading them, or I have plans to read them in the month of July. Now, I have 10 other books for you guys that I do plan on reading in the month of July, so let's go ahead and get to those. The first is the Fiction Addiction Book Club pick over on Amy's channel, BookTube with Amy, and that is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. So this is a romance series by Talia Hibbert. I believe this is #1 in the series, and I think this book is the one that focuses on, I can't remember the main character's name, but she is chronically ill and she decides that she's not gonna let her illness like ruin her life and rule her life, and so she kind of goes out and tries to get a life. So I'm excited to read this with Amy's book club. There's a Discord over on her channel if you guys are interested. Go and check her out. The next book is 5th Season, and I will be buddy reading this with Leandra over at Leandra the TBR 0, and so I'm really excited about this buddy read. This is a sci-fi fantasy novel that has some apocalyptic things going on. It involves a mother, I think, protecting her daughter, and I've just heard everyone rants and raves over the series, and I want to know what the hype is about. I've also heard the series is quite complex, and so hopefully me and Leandra can, you know, talk back and forth and figure out any things that are confusing, but I'm really excited about this read. This is a 5-star prediction of mine, and so fingers crossed that I'm right. The next book is All the Birds in the Sky, and this is for my continuation of fantasy genre blends. This blends sci-fi and fantasy, which was a genre that I'd never considered before, because I know sci-fi and fantasy are oftentimes paired together, but I just couldn't turn this book away. It is a book that focuses on a witch and a mad scientist who grew up together in middle school, and they were like best friends, but some circumstances happened where they kind of separated ways, and as adults they have to come together to help save the world. Which just sounds phenomenal to me. I think it's going to be a really fun read. Next is the Traitor Borrow Cormorant. I believe that this is called The Traitor in other countries, so I'll put the cover up just so you guys know what book I'm talking about, and you have the author's name. This book is about a girl whose town or village is going to be destroyed by some governing force, and she essentially decides to become a spy for the enemy. So this book involves espionage, but it also is deemed a fantasy novel, and so I'm wondering like what components of fantasy they're gonna have. I've heard that this book is fairly political and a little complex as well, so I do think that I'm probably gonna have to take notes during this book, but I've heard a lot of really good things, and so I'm excited to get to this one. Next is another 5-star prediction. I've mentioned this a couple of times in previous videos. This is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, and And this is a pirate story. It's also fantasy though. It's about a woman who comes out of retirement. So she was originally this really infamous pirate, but she's been retired and kind of enjoying a life of leisure, and something calls her out of retirement, and so she has to go back. I believe it's to rescue a friend's kid, if I remember correctly, but I might be mixing that up with another book that I've recently gained interest in, but I'm excited to get to this. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, but a lot of people talk about wanting to read it, not a lot of people talking about after they've read it. So we'll see if this lives up to the hype in my head. The next 3 books are all continuations of series to help me essentially keep to my goal of finishing as many series as I start. There are a lot of series that I do want to start within the next couple of months, and so I'm just trying to like amp myself up and make sure I'm continuing on with the series that I already am involved in because I want to make sure that I meet that goal. The first is Eclipse the Moon. This is the second book. I'm not sure what the series is called, but the first book was called Hunt the Stars, and this is a sci-fi romance book, kind of space opera-y. The series follows a different couple in every book. The first book followed the captain of a bounty hunter ship, and then and a general, I think, in the war, or in the there are 2 factions that are kind of at war with one another, and it's a general in her enemy's war. And you follow the 2, she ends up having to hunt for an artifact for him. He hires her, and a romance ensues. It was really cute, really fast paced, and the side characters in the story were, I mean, they just stole my heart. And so I'm excited because I think the second book in the series actually deals with one of the side characters, the couples that were on the ship. And so I'm really excited. This second book deals with a character called Key. It's been a minute since I've read the first one, but I'm pretty sure that was the kind of technology guru girl that was on the ship last time, and so I'm excited to hear more of her story. So, sorry if you guys hear yelling in the background. My husband's playing video games in the basement, and so, you know, you gotta film when you gotta film. Next is Demon in White. This is, I don't think you guys can see this, is on my bottom shelf. This is the third book in the Sun Eater series. So the first book, The Empire of Silence, was my favorite book of the year last year, and I have continued it with Howling Dark this year, and I want to continue on. This is a series I've really enjoyed every time I'm reading it. And I don't know if you guys know this feeling, but when you really enjoy a series when you're in it, but before you start reading it, you kind of dread reading it. That's how I feel about this series. And I don't know if it's because it's chunky. It's a little bit hard to get engaged in. Like, as you start reading the book, it takes you a minute to really get into the story. I don't know what it is, but this is a book I kind of have to force myself, or a series that I have to force myself to continue with, even though every time I get into one of the books, I really like it. I've rated, I think I know I rated Empire of Silence 5 stars. I'm pretty sure Howling Dark was also 5 stars. And so I'm not sure what I'm scared about and what's making me hesitate to pick up the next. But I just need to bite the bullet and get to it because I know that I'm gonna love it. Next is a series that I often just forget about, and I think I have 2 books left until the end of the series. I've read 3 so far, and that is the Parasol Protectorate. So I am on Heartless, which is the entire series is by Gail Carriger. I know a lot of times when I say Heartless, people think that I'm talking about, I think Melissa Myers has a book out that's called Heartless, but this is the Parasol Protectorate, the 4th book in that series, which follows a woman named Alexia who is just fantastic. This is kind of a steampunk fantasy realm, fantasy sci-fi realm, where you deal with Alexia, who is a preternatural. And she's living in a society of humans and supernatural beings. So supernatural beings, there are vampires in this, there are werewolves, there are ghosts that you're dealing with, and other characters as well. And what Alexia's gift, or curse, depending on who you're talking to in the books, allows her to do is, if she is touching one of these characters or one of these supernatural beings, she makes them no longer supernatural. For the case of vampires, their fangs go away, they can't feed. For the case of werewolves, they can't change, or if they are a wolf, they can't change back into human form. Or maybe it forces them to change back into human form. I can't remember. But And then for ghosts, it actually exorcises the ghost. And so, and then of course, like when she releases, at least the vampires and the werewolves, they go back to like their normal supernatural state. And so this has kind of put her in a predicament because she is known as kind of a weapon. And she doesn't really fit into either realm. And she's super sarcastic, super snarky. She also, being a woman in kind of Victorian era, she is seen to only be good for marrying someone and producing a family, and she's supposed to stay at home and kind of stay out of everybody's way. And she's absolutely not going to do that. I believe, I can't remember how old she is in the book, but she's considered at this point a spinster where no one's going to marry her, and the rest of her family kind of is ashamed of the fact that she didn't follow in a more traditional path. And so I'm not going to tell you much about like the plot of the book that I'm going to read because it will spoil the previous 3 books. But this has been a really fun series, and I'm excited to see what Alexia does next. Next is a book from an author that I've previously read that I just was not sure about. I originally read Small Favors, which I didn't hate, but I also didn't love. And I kind of want to try some authors that I have had average reads from, where I could see myself going either way, whether, you know, maybe it was just the topic of the book that was preventing me from really enjoying it, but not the writing, and so I could enjoy something else by the author. So I want to read The House of Salt and Sorrows. This is a book about, I think it's one particular sister and a family of 12, or a family of 12 sisters, and they live in a house on the sea, and the sisters start dying, and so they believe their family to be cursed. There are creepy things that are happening in the house, and I've heard a lot of people really like this book, so I decided to give this author another try, and this was the one that I decided to pick up. The next is a recommendation from Amy over at BookTube with Amy, and that is Meet Your Baker. So this is a cozy mystery involving baking, which I really didn't need to know any more than that. It sounds really cute. The first line of the synopsis, I'm not gonna be able to quote it, but it says something about the treats are so good that sometimes they're criminal. And I just really thought that that was a cute line. I'm excited to get into this cozy mystery. I don't read a lot of cozy mysteries. The only one that I think people have deemed a cozy mystery that I've read is Finlay Donovan, and I really didn't like that, but I don't know, we'll see. I think that this is definitely a different vibe from Finlay Donovan, and so I'm excited to get to this cute cozy mystery. The last book on my July TBR I actually know absolutely nothing about, and that is Secret Project number 3 by Brandon Sanderson. So this comes out on July 1st, and I usually try and read these pretty quickly, but I do have a lot of books planned for the first couple of weeks in July, and so I'm not sure how quick I will be able to get to this, but I want to read it quickly because I don't want to be spoiled for the contents within. I do believe that this Secret Project is one that is involving the Cosmere, whereas Secret Project number 2 was not a Cosmere book, so I think I'm more excited about it because it is connected to the Cosmere that I love so much, but that's really all I know. So I'm excited. I know that Brandon Sanderson hardly ever disappoints. I've never rated one of his books lower than 3 stars, and most of them I haven't rated lower than 4. So I'm excited to get to another one of his novels. And those are the 10 new books I plan on reading in July, and 3 old books that I'm carrying over from June. Wish me luck. If you guys have a book that you're really excited to read in July, please let me know in the comments down below, or if you've read any of these books and have an opinion on them, I would love to chat with you guys in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.